really like.
And which one is that?
His name is Robert Pirsig. He was an American philosopher. He wrote the American philosophy classic called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And it became a bestseller, and basically it's a book about the conflict between science and religion.
Oh, right.
And so
I see. Okay.
he basically came up with, he felt that in Eastern philosophy, like in Eastern religions, like in specifically Buddhism, deals with the ever-changing nature of the world more accurately or more sufficiently than the Western science looks at the world. And so he came up with a philosophy to sort of expand science. And so what he did is come up with a new philosophy that was coherent with science, but could also go beyond the limits of science.
Right, okay.
Because right now, and this is also my opinion, I feel that there are a lot of things that we are sort of, as a culture, on the entire world, we're just shoving a lot of phenomena that people are genuinely experiencing.
Yes, yes.
We're shoving that under the carpet and saying, oh, we can't measure it, and therefore it's not objective, so it's not scientific, so we're going to pretend those things aren't real.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I know that there's a whole lot that we do not understand, but I do feel that it is sort of our responsibility, and it's also very fun to just find out and try to approach them as rationally as we can. And I believe that there's a form of science where we can approach these things that previously we would call primitive or unscientific or religious, and shoving it away as nonsense, but actually approaching them. So what I find very interesting right now is that you have a lot of studies that are done on, say, meditation or prayer or whatever, and it actually alleviates anxiety.
True.
There are all these things that are happening in the brain, and so it's like, I don't want everything to reduce everything down to science. But in order to pragmatically approach all the problems that we're encountering within this field, let's go for it. Let's make the steps.
Absolutely. Why just dismiss things just because you don't understand them properly?
Yes.
Yeah.
So sorry. It's a very hard thing for
I
me
understand.
to explain. So the philosophy of this philosopher was that he tried to make a scientifically sound philosophy that would also go beyond the limits of science.
Yeah.
And so to back that up, he tried to embed it in Darwinism, like evolutionary thinking.
Theory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what he did is separate reality in 4 layers. Actually 5, but 4 layers that have to do with human beings specifically. And so at first, say there was a Big Bang. No matter
doesn't matter how, who, whatever.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
Just it happened.
Right, it happened.
Yeah.
And then first, and this is the first layer, but he doesn't really mention it specifically, is say the immaterial layer. So everything is there except there's no life.
Yeah.
Then came the biological layer.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be the monkey. That would be this
him.
thing. Yes.
It.
On top of that, so you get monkeys, and then we evolve and we become humans. But there's a certain difference between, say, people and animals.
Right. Okay.
Right. People are actually social.
Yeah.
If you'd replace every human right now here in this place with chimpanzees, it would be pandemonium.
It would. Chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Animals can't do that. And so we cooperate. We have this social thing going on.
Yeah.
So this is the second layer. This is the social world.
Right, okay.
Then, you had this entire era where we're just, cooperating with each other and just communicating, all that stuff. But we weren't as sophisticated yet. Like we couldn't have
a conversation the way we are having.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's highly sophisticated.
True.
So on top of that comes the intellectual layer. That's this one.
Right, okay.
And then I feel fascinating, talking about these 3 layers.
Yes.
But what I'm interested in for myself specifically
the ultimate one.
is and especially the gray area between here.
Yes.
And so this would be the dynamic or spiritual dimension. And I feel that
the source of peace and perfection.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And so
Well, that's interesting. That is. So what I mean, I can see the prayer beads. Surely this philosopher didn't mention these, did he?
No. This is my own thing.
Right.
Yeah. So a thing that he also associated with the spiritual layer, because in the same sense, I think science doesn't really understand creativity, and so what science does is it measures everything.
Yes.
And so what I think that science doesn't understand and that scientists sort of miss or shove under the carpet is that there has to be a sort of creative element at work in order to do scientific work.
Yes.
Okay, like you need to have a hypothesis.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is about science and the scientific method is that basically science is pretty much only good for testing what you think you already know.
Right, yes.
And so testing and going where you already think you were. But there isn't anything in the scientific method that tells you where to look, like what's better.
Right,
and so the scientific method doesn't say how do you come up with a hypothesis. That comes purely from within, purely from the scientist.
Subjective, yeah.
Whereas what we always say about science is it's all this super objective enterprise. You're just sort of this god or this alien that's removed from everything, and you're looking at the world as if you have nothing to do with the world. That's wrong. True. We are inherently intertwined with everything that's going on.
Yes.
And so
I can see what you mean exactly. Carry on. You are doing a good job.
And so
you've lost the train of thought, haven't you?
A little bit, but I was talking about creativity.
Yes.
And so what's funny?
What's
funny about this? Robert Pirsig, this philosopher, said that in essence, the highest form of being, in a sense, could be regarded as art.
Right.
And so because scientists basically they have this entire framework of what they are doing.
Yeah.
But in a sense, artists are beyond themselves. They are beyond what they know.
Okay.
Like, you can have a scientist and he can recite an entire theory or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's this completely different thing at work the moment an artist puts a canvas in front of him and he doesn't know what's going to be on the canvas. And so it's a total mystery.
Yes.
And a thing that's very interesting about this book that he has written is that normally philosophy is like written very dry, you know? I don't know if you've ever read a philosophy book, but
I have.
To me it's very tiring. It's very dry.
Yes.
And so what's interesting about his two books is that he has embedded his philosophy in a novel. And so not only gives
creative writing at the same time.
Exactly. And he ties it into a story, so it actually becomes interesting. Like, wow, this is very fun to read, and I'm learning something.
Yeah.
And so I feel, because I think that his philosophy is one of the most accurate theories around right now that can describe all the phenomena of the world. I thought, okay, let me go a step further and go beyond himself, in a sense.
I see what you mean.
And
so did you ever consider what his source was?
What his source was? Eastern philosophy.
Which one?
He spoke specifically about Zen Buddhism.
Right.
And that's also a big inspiration of mine.
Right.
So here on the back is a Buddhist mandala, but my take on it.
But you have taken. I was about to say you put your take on it. Right. Okay. But is that the form that doesn't necessarily accommodate a creator? Zen Buddhism.
That's very hard. That's a very hard question to ask.
I know. It's worth discussing.
The funny thing about Zen Buddhism is that it says a lot about, it delves a lot into the nature of categorization.
Yeah.
And so...
but don't you think sorry to interject.
No problem.
Don't you think there seems to be a correlation between that particular perspective and the scientific method? In terms of categorization.
I think science and the Western mind, if I may put it like that, is obsessed with categorization.
Yeah.
So before we can, basically there are a lot of things that we do not understand right now and we do not have names for, and we can't sort of approach. But in Western culture, we only take things to be real as soon as we can identify and name them.
Yeah. Anything else is beyond the purview.
And so Zen Buddhism has a very different take on a lot of things, and specifically the categorization of things. And so within Zen Buddhism, there are all these practices in order to sort of speed up the intellect.
Yes.
So to exhaust it, in a sense.
Right.
They say that sort of a true understanding of reality is beyond knowledge. It's beyond the intellect.
Right.
And so they have a very big emphasis on not thinking, not naming, not categorizing things.
Right.
And so while I do feel that Zen Buddhism is ahead in a sense, or
I understand, yeah.
sophisticated in this particular area, there are a lot of things that are sort of echoed, which are very developed in Zen Buddhism, but which you can also see in other religions.
Right.
So,
okay.
for example, the reason why it's forbidden to depict the god in Judaism, for example,
Yeah.
is because you are not allowed to idolize it.
Yeah.
As soon as you give it a picture, you confuse you
Yeah,
run
yeah.
the risk of confusing the image for the thing itself.
Yeah.
And so the stance of Zen Buddhism in a lot of these things is that they go even a step further. Is that you can certainly get attached to idols and images and prayers
Yes.
and all that stuff. But they say that the worst idols we have are actually our ideas.
Yes.
We are clinging to them.
Right,
And so when you ask me what is the nature of God, the best Zen Buddhist answer I could give you, just stay silent. Stay silent, say nothing.
Yeah.
I think that is more in
I can see
line,
the logic
closer
behind
to the
it.
truth.
Yeah, I can see the logic behind it. Because the moment you try and describe, you are going to be putting
You actually
limits.
fall short.
You are
And so,
gonna put limits
Zen
on.
Buddhism is very influenced by Taoism, which
Yes.
is ancient religion of the Chinese.
Yeah.
And so the most famous book the most famous document in Taoism is called the Tao Te Ching.
Right.
And on the first page, it is said, like, one of the first few lines is, the Tao that can be named is
Yeah.
not the Tao.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he basically admits that whatever I say right now is never ever going to be the thing that I actually want to talk about.
Yeah.
It is useless.
But
like words are futile.
absolutely. Do you know what you are saying? Do you think that this was the product of a human being? Or was it an idea that originated from an external source?
What you mean? Do you
The
mean
idea of
like the creation of the universe?
The creator, the idea of a creator. Do you know, as you said rightfully, that if you are asked about the nature of the creator, the best answer is remain silent.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
Then if you look, you call it the Tao Te Ching, and I've always known it as the Tao Te Ching. Okay?
Right.
But whatever it is, it will have had an origin.
Right. So
Now,
I was here 2 weeks ago, and I've
Okay.
had a conversation with
Good. You'll make life easier for me then, isn't it? Yeah.
I've had a conversation with a very intimidating, huge Arabic dude, and
With a beard.
yes,
Muhammad Hijab.
Yep, yes,
He
yes.
is intimidating. You have to keep looking up there.
you turned out to be very friendly.
He is.
I had a good
He's a
conversation
gentle
with him.
giant.
Yes, exactly.
When he feels like wanting to be. Yeah, I know,
but
I
it
know
took
what
me
you
like
mean, yeah.
5 minutes to like, oh shit.
I know exactly what
Sort of
I'm going to
like,
be very calm on this one and see what happens. Yeah, no, but would it be an origin point? Was it as a result of a human construct, or was it an external source that provided the necessary information for us to even primarily develop the idea of a creator?
I'm not sure that the idea of a creation is sort of a human.
Not
obviously-
creation, creator.
All right. There's like scientifically speaking, I think
Whichever
there's no way of
speaking.
telling. But I think what you want me to get closer
No,
to.
no. I want us to discuss, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me make that clear. You see, when you talk about the scientific method, yeah? My take is on this. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, yeah? And somehow the subject matter turned out to be black holes, yeah? And he says, you know what? The understanding is that black holes recede into infinity, yeah? I said, no, that can't be possible, yeah? Now, I'm not saying that I have got an astrophysicist background, but I said, no, I don't think so. I said, you see, the sum of everything that is limited is going to be limited, yeah? You can't have something. Are you following?
I've had this entire conversation. before.
Have you? Right, good. So you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So I'm telling the guy, I said, no, that's impossible. A black hole also, by definition, is going to be limited. The question is, where does it go?
Exactly.
where does it
Very
suddenly?
mysterious.
Yeah, but whatever it is still contained within the universe.
And so
it can't be anything beyond.
And so here's the thing. This is like this argument.
Yeah,
it's
I
really
understand.
very difficult for me to summarize and
That's
sum it
fine,
up
don't
what
worry about
we
it.
had.
Yeah, sure.
But this was a long line of argument that we had for 2 hours, and there was something that I was developing there in order to make him understand like my viewpoint.
Right. Okay.
And so he was
2 hours.
Yeah, we had a
No,
long
we'll
conversation.
take 15 minutes. Yeah.
So it basically came with the question like, where everything comes, like everything that there is must have come from something. And I say, all right.
Yeah.
So basically what we are talking about right now is how can something come out of nothing?
Okay.
Like this is that scientists asking themselves
Right,
one
I
day
see
when
what
they have
you
like
mean.
the Big
Yeah,
Bang.
yeah.
And it was, right, what was
Yeah.
there before the Big Bang? And they
Yeah,
say, well, there was no before the Big Bang because time didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but
The usual
what then
narrative,
did
yeah.
exist before there was the Big Bang, before time existed?
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about nothing, you're speaking like as literally as you can take it. You're actually speaking about nothing.
Yeah.
And so the line I developed over the 2 hours with Mohammed was that whenever we use the word nothing, we're actually always saying something.
Yeah, true.
But we're not looking at that.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, what science has a very hard time dealing with, and for decades now we're shoving under the carpet and saying no, it doesn't exist. We're not going to take to it. It's all irrational. It's all bullshit. Is the fact that we dream. Right? I'm not saying that all of the dream analysts that are all there are all right, and that there's these super magical stuff happening when we're dreaming, all that stuff. It's like, no, but dreaming is actually a real phenomenon. But scientifically speaking, there's a very few people that are actually approaching it in a rational way and actually taking it like, okay, how are we going to fit this into the scientific framework?
Yeah.
And so Mohammed actually brought up a very materialist scientist in our conversation. He said, yeah, you sound a bit like Richard Dawkins.
Oh, right.
And it's like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not Richard Dawkins. And I'll give you an example.
Thankfully.
When Richard Dawkins wakes up in the morning and he just had a dream, if you ask him, what did you have just now? He said, I'll have a dream, but it's nothing. It's like, no. What did you have? No, it's nothing. It's like, no. You had a real experience, but you have a very hard time dealing with it objectively and rationally.
Yes.
What did you have? All right, I had a dream.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. So it was something. You didn't experience nothing.
True.
And so, in other examples, whenever we walk into a room, we say this room's empty. If you ask that person who is standing in the empty room, what is in the room? They'll say nothing. Well, that's not what's happening.
We understand. Yeah.
Literally speaking, nothing is absolutely nothing. And so, in the line of your own logic, that black holes must have limits in a sense.
Absolutely.
I would then also say that it is because we seem to be in like this reality bubble in a sense.
Yeah.
Right? There are constraints in a sense.
Yes.
Whenever you say that something is nothing, you're actually linking the word nothing to a thing that you do not want to acknowledge.
Okay.
And so from the point of Zen Buddhism, they have a completely different take on the nature of nothingness, which is also why there's this big thing that they have for emptiness. So when you come to a Zen Buddhist temple, there's barely anything.
Yes.
The Japanese have this completely cultural embracing of emptiness. Right?
Yeah.
Their living rooms are very, very spacious. Every table that you that they have, most of the time you can just fold it and put it away because they just like to have room in a sense.
Yes.
So it's completely embedded and linked into the culture.
A development into nothingness, emptiness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what the point of view is from Zen Buddhism is that as much as science would like to argue that nothingness is in fact nothing, pure nothing, but I don't think that pure nothing can ever exist.
No.
We have to look at the nothingness or nothing that they speak of as a very, 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 very elusive thing. And so a thing that is said in Zen Buddhism is that it's not so much that how did something come out of nothing, but something and nothing arise mutually.
Okay.
Now, how did something and nothing come out of what?
Yes.
That is the more appropriate question.
Yeah.
And so, is there a creator? Does it matter? I don't think so.
So that's your answer to my question about the point of origin.
Yeah, well
Right, okay.
Because
I know what you mean. But you know what? A very important thing that I was picking up on, you know, in your narrative,
yeah.
you see, the point of origin of anything has to be considered duly. Yeah? We can't
No.
just say that we have picked it up from 50% and decided to run with it and create our own other 50%. We can do that, but it doesn't necessarily make it correct. Am I right in my reasoning?
I don't like.
Okay, I'll just follow the train anyway. Okay? Zen Buddhism, I would suggest, had its origin from when, under the Bodh Gaya tree, he received his enlightenment. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. There was a source there, wasn't there? There had to be. He received it from another source.
Oh yeah. I think.
Guaranteed, he had to have received it. Now, the narrative goes to us that while he was there, this thing appeared which we would only consider to be a negative force, call it the devil, call it what you want. Yes, fired arrows of fire, and by the time they arrived, they became lotus flowers. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
But,
Fair
but
enough.
I'd love to hear.
Fair enough. Don't matter.
I love
it's
to learn.
okay. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of mythology and all that stuff.
Are you considering the movement you are following a myth?
No.
You just said mythology.
Right.
Oh,
So
no.
what I've been trying to explain earlier is that Zen Buddhism is beyond the realm of the intellect, so to speak.
So it's beyond the realm of the intellect, so you are concluding it's a myth.
No.
Oh, good.
No,
I'm
I'm just talking to you. So
Right, okay.
As futile as words are,
I understand.
I'm going to use words to make myself comprehensible.
Try and understand.
But what I'm actually believing in
This is something else.
is
I know
something
what you
else.
mean. Yeah,
And so,
I agree with you.
So what all Eastern philosophy, all Eastern religion is very much about is the idea of non-dualism.
Yes.
Right. So transcending
Yes.
binary categories
Yes.
of right and wrong, of left and right,
Yeah.
of good and evil, of
Yes.
objective and subjective, of
Yes.
truth and lies and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It's like no. The truth that is more true than anything
Yeah.
is beyond those two categories, and also beyond the intellect in itself.
No, I can understand that. Sorry, finish.
Like
Go ahead, say it the way it is. Don't worry. Yeah, I just look handsome. Don't worry. Just
no,
go. Go for it. Go for it.
Right. So what I mean.
That's it. Take it out.
So what I mean to say is that I'm very like if I'd have to put a label on myself.
Yes.
And this label, I feel very defines me and
Yes,
puts me
it
in a
will
box,
limit you.
and I don't like it. It limits me.
I understand.
But
Yeah.
if I have to,
Okay.
like for convenience,
Yes.
I would consider myself a pragmatic mystic. And so
I like that.
There are all these questions about
pragmatic mystic.
the nature of reality and all that stuff. It's like no. I want to come to the edge of what I think I know and what I think I do not know, and see if I can like step over this barrier
I see what you
and
mean.
expand my knowledge.
Yeah, I can
And so,
agree. Yeah,
y-
I see what you mean.
Like
I know what you
in
mean.
all honesty,
Yeah.
I'm not very interested in whether there is
A
a
creator.
creator or whatever.
Understood.
And so
Understood. Understood.
to give you an example, like a quote that I very much like of
Yeah,
a
sure.
philosopher called Alan Watts.
Uh-huh.
He used to
Yeah, yeah.
interpret a lot of Eastern philosophy. He said, Zen Buddhist spirituality does not confuse spirituality with ideas about God when you're peeling potatoes.
Right. I see.
Zen Buddhist spirituality is just to peel the potatoes.
Yeah, I see. I
And
see
so
what you mean.
what was a very funny thing when I
Yeah.
was talking to Mohammed for about two hours
Yeah.
is that we had this entire conversation about theology and like all these big areas,
Different
right?
yeah.
It just takes you away. It's like
Okay.
you become so
Ingrained.
ingrained in the
And
entire
engrossed in it,
conversation that you sort of lose the entire
I
world
see,
around
I
you.
see,
You know?
I see what you mean.
And-
But I can see that, but Bart, don't you think, from the perspective I'm seeing here, and please tell me if I'm wrong, the ultimate source or the absolute source of your peace and contentment will only be realized from your perspective only? Am I right?
Yes, in a sense,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Can we then translate that to each and every human individual? Bearing in mind that the reality is that we live in what we consider ourselves to be a society. and where there are going to be different modes of thinking, different modes of action. How would you deal with that?
Yes and no.
Well, tell me the yes and then tell me the no.
The yes, in a sense, is because even though I feel that words are very futile, we can actually have a conversation with each other and sort of remotely understand each other and see.
But when you say words are very futile in the context of human interaction, what other source can we have apart from language?
Zen Buddhism does this by direct pointing. Yeah, exactly.
Should I remain silent while I'm pointing?
Yeah, it could be.
What am I saying? It won't work. Yeah, but I can understand the point of view.
Right. So,
but how do you?
The yes part is for as futile as words are, I do actually believe they're valuable, which is actually the reason why, say, the founder of Taoism, or why he's considered the historical founder of Taoism, but he didn't ever want to be some sort of initiatory figure of, well, we're going to make a new religion. He was not about that at all. Even though he said words are futile, he still wrote the Tao Te Ching. And so I still think it's valuable.
Strange, isn't it?
It's very strange. It's very funny.
Yes.
But I still think talking is good.
Of course.
But so here's the no part. I think that even though like religion and philosophy or any form of communication can actually...
Excuse me, sorry, I'm diverting. Are you married?
No.
And you think talking is good? It's okay, carry on. It's okay, just a joke, I threw it in. No offense, no offense. Go ahead.
I think talking is good, and it can actually help and benefit individuals.
Absolutely.
But I think to come to a true understanding, or what you said, like peace within yourself, there has to be an element that completely comes from within, from the individual. And so while you can absolutely benefit from outside sources, there has to be something that is completely within yourself that has sort of little to do with the outside world in order to actually come to that point where your entire world is turned upside down, and you're like, all right, I understand a whole lot more now, and I'm a lot more at peace.
I can fully see that. But you know and I know that the reality that we are surrounded by and we face has got a fringe element of what we would call or consider to be criminally inclined individuals. We agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, no matter what they associate themselves with,